Welcome to Credentialed Coach School, the podcast designed to prepare your mind, body, and soul for a dreamy coaching business. I'm your host, Amanda Bybel, founder of the Inner Beauty Bybel and Credentialed Coach School. Each week, I'll share strategies to elevate your coaching career and to chat with successful entrepreneurs on what it really takes to grow your thriving coaching business. Take a deep breath and let's get started on building your dream business. Matt, Karen, I am so excited to be able to have this opportunity to chat with you guys today on the Credentialed Coach School podcast. So just like a quick little crash course to everybody listening in. I actually had the opportunity of chit-chatting with them this morning, and we had like this little bit of an intro call, and it turns out that not only are we literally neighbors, but everything that all of us talked about, it's like super aligned and such a vibe. So I'm really excited to be having this conversation today to introduce them to you all, because I know that every entrepreneur has a super inspiring story about that very first step and, what really led them into the space to really bet on themselves. And I know if you're listening, then you too are either thinking about becoming an entrepreneur and following your heart-centered, purpose-driven business idea or dream or calling or whatever that is, or you're already somebody who is in this space looking to learn from other entrepreneurs and what their path has been like. So with that being said, I'm just gonna toss it over to you guys and pass over the baton. Let us know who you are, what you do, how you wound up in the wellness space or the spiritual space. And so take it away.
I guess it's one of those things. It's in 2007, I had a job offer to move to Florida. So my wife and I and our daughter moved to Florida just literally within a couple of weeks. Got the offer, jumped in the car, and moved down there. When we were down there, a lot of things changed. We were only down there about 2.5 years, but a lot of things changed. But overall, we weren't that happy with the experience in Florida. So in fall of 2009, we decided to come back. I reached out to my old company. I got my job back. My wife got her job back also.
Yeah.
So we came back in January 2010, but nothing was the same. We assumed we were just going to get back onto it. Everything was going to become the same. Right. We're just going to go back to our lives, and everything was completely different. My wife got a job in our old company, and about a year later, she's like, this doesn't work for me anymore. She started to find some spiritual people, some spiritual teachers, and she found a spiritual teacher.
Wow.
And she started to evolve. So within like a year and a half, she completely transformed. Really thought process, everything, and really getting deep into the spiritual world.
Wow.
And in 2012, she decided we were going to do our first expo as exhibitors. So took a big leap, did a 2.5-day event, jumped in there. Our booth was literally a 6x6 space. That was it.
It was so small. I had to stand in the aisle. We couldn't even fit in the booth.
It was that small, but we had a great time. It was the caveat is it was the weekend after Sandy, so we had no power, and the event was in Philadelphia. So literally we drove back and forth every day. But when we walked out of that show, we're like, we'd love to do this one day.
Yeah.
This was 2012.
Wait, so in 2012, sorry, I want to get this story. So you moved down to Florida, you came back, it was like shit hit the fan. We're like, no, this is not a vibe for me anymore. Karen, you're like, I want to follow my spiritual path, hired a mentor or a teacher. You're like, I'm going to this wellness expo. So in the wellness expo, what kind of a booth did you set up? Was it for, what was that for?
So, it's interesting, just to take it back just a little bit.
Yeah.
When we got back from Florida, what I do want to say is that while we were in Florida, I had met a woman that became a really big catalyst in my life. And when I say catalyst, she was everything I wasn't at the time. And she was bucking against every belief system that I had built my entire life.
Oh, so you were like triggered AF.
Oh, I was triggered AF. You don't even know. It was crazy. And, looking back on all of that, it was just the universe orchestrating the most crazy things, because he initiated so much change in his life. I initiated so much change in mine. And then our daughter ultimately too. It just, everything kind of changed for us. So when we came back to New Jersey and we went back to what we thought was going to be our old lives, it just wasn't that. We were different people.
Yeah.
And I remember walking into my old job and everybody was so thrilled to have me back. I sat down at that desk and I tell you, I wasn't there an hour and I was looking around going, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing here? This doesn't feel right, which completely I wasn't ready for, threw
Yeah.
me into this whole tailspin. And then I actually got sick. Was having some autoimmune issues at the time, and I ended up in the hospital.
Okay.
For about a week. I had dizzy spells. I couldn't get up. I mean, the whole ascension symptoms kicked off.
Oh yeah.
But we make it just like, oh, it's a sickness, right?
Right.
So long story short, a girlfriend of mine was just like, are you ready now? Are you ready to take the spiritual leap and path?
Mhm.
And so to Matt's point, when he says that I found a mentor, it was just like, like when you're ready and
Just
the
now.
student's ready and the people just show
Teacher.
up,
Yeah, the
right?
teacher
The
appears.
teachers show up, the
Yeah.
reflection in your life changes.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like how we ended up rolling. And then to bring it to the expo itself that we
Yeah.
ended up doing in 2012, because from 2010 to 2012, not only my life, but his life, we initiated so much unique individual change that when we did that show and we met all these incredible people, we looked at each other and we just said, we're going to do this one day. Like we
Wow.
walked out of that building, like when you have that knowing that comes over you,
Oh yeah.
and you're
Oh yeah.
just like resonant. Yes. Like, I don't know how it's happening. I don't know what it's going to look like, but we looked at each other and we were like, we're going to do this one day.
Yeah.
Not realizing we wanted to host a big event like that. But
Right.
we just knew we wanted to be part of community. We knew we wanted to build with people that were in alignment with where we were.
Mhm.
Totally. No, that's so inspiring. And like the fact that you tuned into what that inner truth was telling you, like that inner calling, and you just went for it. I feel like that's such a important quality to have, especially if you have this big goal and these big goals and big dreams, right? There's so many times people come into my DMs and they're like, I really truly want to answer this calling. I really truly want to become a coach, but I'm so afraid of
Mhm.
taking that step. And that's that not taking the step is going to be the reason why we can't impact the people that we
Mhm.
want to
Yeah.
impact, right? Like, how are we
Mhm.
going to actually change lives if we're so afraid of ourselves and so afraid of what people could potentially think? And, my normal response is like, well, I've never judged anyone for going after their dreams.
Mhm.
Have you?
Yeah.
So what happened next?
So then that was 2012.
Yeah.
And we opened up a small wellness center here in 2016, very small space, 600 square feet.
Okay.
Literally like a bedroom.
But what happened was we started to meet more and more people in the community. It really
Right.
got expanded because we had done shows, but they were scattered about. You'd meet people not seen for a year, but this gave us a base to really have people come in and really start to form relationships with them.
Okay.
So we had
Okay.
that space for about 2 years,
Okay.
and then we closed it up with the thought of getting a bigger space.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen just for a number of reasons. We just couldn't find the right space.
Mm-hmm.
And then that November, we did a show at Exhibitor in the convention center at Edison. We had a booth there. It was okay, but we met somebody and we got a message that maybe it's time for you to start your own show. So literally, that was around Thanksgiving of 2018.
Okay.
By the end of December, we had an LLC, a website built. We hosted our first show at the Radisson and Freehold in March of 19. So literally 3 months later,
3 months.
and we had 40 exhibitors and we had 800 people attend. So we put it together quickly, and it was like the most joyous time we ever had because you could see all these people connecting. We had somebody who still does our show today, came from Virginia. She saw our advertising on Facebook, made the drive up for the day from Virginia. Just she felt a calling to the show. So many people were attracted just based on the energy,
Mm-hmm.
and it skyrocketed from there. So we did another show that October, and then basically we signed a contract to go to the convention center at Edison. So if people aren't familiar with that building, host shows year round, big shows, small shows, and it's about 150,000 square feet.
It's like Gigundo size, like on steroids. I went there for a college fair for my cousin last year, and I was like,
Yeah.
I don't even know where my head is. Like, I was like, it's so big.
Yeah.
So you take up that entire space.
We take
That's
up that
that's
whole
that's
thing.
huge. And wait, so I think I read that you guys are also like the biggest wellness expo in Jersey or in the world.
Oh, no, not in the world. We
No.
can't claim that,
No.
but we certainly would say that we are the largest wellness event, weekend event in the
Weekend
state
event.
of New Jersey. Yeah,
That's
that's
insane.
indoors
Mhm.
for sure. I mean, our last show, we had 300 exhibitors with us.
Wow.
The attendance was outstanding. We had over 60 interactive workshops
Mhm.
going off. The majority of them are all free because we want that to be the experience.
Our first show at the convention center was supposed to be at the end of March 2020. 2 weeks before the show, it got canceled.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we had to change the date 5 times. So it showed us what we're made of in the perseverance, because we didn't just fold up shop. We knew we were going to host these shows, and we focused on it. And basically, we had to move the date 5 times. We did a Facebook Live expo, multiple different ways, but really just to persevere because we knew this was our calling, and we weren't going to let COVID or anything else stop where we were focusing.
I love that. My question that comes up is like, because you mentioned a couple times that this is your calling, and like I am like a big advocate for like that inner voice, that calling. Like literally, the reason why I knew that like coming into this career and being a coach and a trainer and having the certification and stuff was because it was my calling. And when I tap into like what that really truly means to me, it was literally like I was like wearing a neon sign on my forehead, like a metaphorical, symbolic sign on my forehead, like divulge all your secrets and tell me your life story, like to the barista at Starbucks or like sitting at the bus stop or whatever it is. Like I'd sit down and I'd walk away and I'm like, huh, that's interesting. It happened again. Like, and I just like knew in my soul that I was truly meant to like embrace this. So I'm curious because I know there's probably a lot of people listening and saying like my calling, like how do I actually know? Like how did you know that this was your calling?
It's one of those things. I don't necessarily know, and this might trigger a couple people, but I don't necessarily know if we just have one calling in life. So it's one of those things. It's your journey, it's your openness, it's your willingness to be a vessel of the divine consciousness source to allow the expression of life itself to come through you. So that allows you to get out of the way. And what we have found is that we have moved in flow with the source creation as it wants to express. So I started out doing crystal healing and doing wire wrapped jewelry and stuff like that, which I still do to this day. But had I not been willing to incrementally move, I don't know that we would be here as gateway holders for all these other businesses in this incredible community to come through and do that, because it's about willingness and it's not always about you. We think our path is about us, but it's the bigger us. It's not just me, it's not just him. It's about holding the door for everybody to come through and allow them to have the experience that they need to have.
Like being the pioneer, right?
Exactly. And I believe that that's really the heart set of the visionary entrepreneur, right? When we are called to do these things, yes, it's for us so that we can satisfy our life mission, but it's the ripple effect by saying yes to that just impacts everybody. And I think that's what Matt and I are both most proud of, is that. Right? So if there was anybody listening and they're like, how do I find that voice? It's listen to the small voice, listen to the small step, like yourself. Right? You take that small step. We didn't just wake up one morning, like Matt always likes to say, you don't just wake up who you are. You have to build to who you are and who you become.
Choice. It's like this active choice. And I think that's the most important. Like that like resonated so like hard in my soul. I was actually sharing the other day, like every expert, every successful entrepreneur, every person that you look at that you're like, they're a natural. Like they decided one day to learn something over and over, committed to it every day or every other day or whatever their schedule was that fit into like their growth and their development. And through default of like really honing in on what excited them and what like lit that fire in their soul, like after a week, a month, a year of, learning something, they became a natural.
Yeah.
They took the first step and then the second step. But, what we see today where we put people on pedestals, like every single one of those people, like including me, you, all like everyone that we're like, oh my God, how did they do this? Well, every single person, everything that we all have in common is like we had our first step and like we made that first choice. Exactly.
And it's so scary.
It is.
And you're not alone. When we reflect back on when we did that first show in Pennsylvania, right? When I was out there with my creations and I was comparing myself to all these other avatars who had been doing shows for years, I almost had a meltdown in my poor booth because I didn't know what to do.
That you were standing in the aisle.
Yeah, I felt like a fish out of water. But despite the fear, despite that imposter syndrome, despite all those voices inside of your head that say you cannot do this, you can. And every entrepreneurial spirit will tell you that. You have to say yes, even in the face of the greatest fear. Yeah, you have to.
So what would you say to someone who has that inner whisper, who has that inner calling, has these big dreams of changing the world, a person at a time, right? But experiencing like all this fear, like what did you do? Like how did you guys, each of you both, I'm sure dealt with it differently, or maybe because you had each other, it was easier. I'm not sure, but like, how did you're just like, F the fear and let's do it anyway. Like, what was that like for you?
It was really just that. I mean, we innately have each other's back. Do you know what I mean? Like we want the best for each other. I want the best for him. He wants the best for me. In this union, there's no competition. But again, we had to work through that because we both came into our relationship with different, let's just say, states of being that we weren't even aware of until you start pulling the covers off. And then you're like, what the hell is under here? Right? You see all these things. And then because we love and respect each other so much, we said, let's get to the heart of this. Let's fix it and let's keep going.
I think it's one of those things that, people don't want to have tough conversations. One thing to be married, to work with your spouse is another thing, because then you're together and then you have different feelings when you're working as opposed to your personal. But the important thing for us was to have those tough conversations. And even to this day, we talk and we communicate. And that's the biggest thing because that's how we get through our fears. If I'm having a fearful day, she's having a fearful day, we know we can confide in each other. We're not going to be judged. We're going to be respected and loved. And it makes it, have those tough conversations or meltdowns or whatever you want to call it, because they're going to happen. Anybody who says, well, this person, look at them now, to your point, they've done all the work. Behind the scenes, you're not seeing what they're going through, the stress points and everything else. You just see the outcome. The show, we're there 3 days. People see us 3 days. They talk to us throughout the year. But there's a lot of things behind the scenes that are going on. Good things, bad things, other things that we're working through, the stress points. But we have each other and we communicate constantly. And again, it really helps us balance those things and knowing that we're safe. And I think that's the biggest thing I can say for our marriage. We feel safe.
So to anyone listening, it would be to cultivate that safety within yourself. And the best way that you can do that is to have people around you that you feel safe with, that you know that when you're in your most vulnerable moment, you can share that and they're going to hold you. Not only nurture you, but hold you accountable, right? For the BS that we tell ourselves sometimes, right? Because you have to know when you need like a little booty kick and when you kind of just need the love to say, it's okay, let's move through this.
And that's really what you guys built too, right? It's like this incredible supportive community where, it's not for everyone. It's for people who are looking for that growth, who are looking to develop and who are looking to really ascend to the next level version of themselves and like really learn and harness like their inner superpowers, right? Like for me, I know I felt so isolated in like the beginning stage of my entrepreneur journey, but also the beginning stages of like my spiritual awakening and like all different, there's different phases, right? Like what you said, there's multiple callings. We have different callings for different seasons and different reasons and all of the
Mhm.
things, right? But I remember feeling so isolated because, people didn't get it. Like they weren't on the same, like, I don't want
Yeah.
to say like on the same level, but like I was really trying to like activate like all my spidey senses and like work out like all my Jedi mind tricks and like figure out how to like Jedi mind trick myself and,
Mhm.
figure out like what everything was like all of like I didn't want to live like society's norm.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that felt scary. It
Yeah.
felt
Oh
scary
yeah.
because like that's not what like I mean now I think in 2024 it's a little bit more normalized than at
Mhm.
least it was in 2018, 2019. But even then, like everybody else in my life, and I shared with you guys this earlier, I called them earthlings because
Mhm.
I just felt like super alien. Not only am
Mhm.
I in recovery and I go to Narcotics Anonymous, which everyone thinks I'm an alien for doing that, but like being in rooms where people are like pulling cards and talking to their
Mhm.
angels and
Yeah.
their spirit guides and like
Mhm.
all the things.
Yeah.
So I wanted to hear a little bit more about like what your take is on like the importance of fostering or putting yourself in rooms where like people just actually get it and like what that was like for you to create the room because maybe you didn't have it to start
Mhm.
with.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's a beautifully deep
Yeah.
question.
You,
Yeah.
you know, for me, it's real quick. I'm still in corporate America. So for
Yeah.
me, I had to get comfortable with me.
Yeah.
So I go to a corporate office 2 days a week, but I'm me.
Yeah.
I'm the same person you see you're talking to at the show. So I've become comfortable in myself and I'm not too concerned about people judging me. People know that we have a Crystal Holistic Expo, that we have a shop, that we do this. I don't care. And I think it's taken me time to build that to your point. So
Yeah.
to me, when I go into the room, I feel like I'm creating because I'm comfortable myself. I'm
Yeah.
comfortable in my own energy. So I'm not really concerned if people think this or that or what they think of me, because to your point, I've always felt different, just comfortable in my own skin now. So I'm like, if you like me, great. If you get it, you do. If you don't, if you want to judge me, that's okay, because that's no reflection on how I make my life.
Well, it's interesting. I think I kind of feel like I've always been an innate nurturer, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I had someone in my life who used to almost kind of tease me a little bit and say that I was like the proverbial mom, right? Like I always had
Okay.
this energy about me. And then I came to understand that it was that feminine essence of me,
Mm,
right? So when I think about creating the room, right, that space, for me as a creative and a feminine visionary, I want to create a very safe space for people to come to be their most vulnerable, right?
mm,
So when I think about the show and like the contribution that I offer, because we balance each other out with obviously
yeah.
the different energies, um, I want people to know that when they come, that they're safe to
Hmm.
express and to be exactly as they are, because there is no right or wrong. There
Right.
is room for everybody in this community because everyone's at a different stage. And the reason why I want to create that space is because we know what it's like when you don't have that support,
Yeah.
when you don't have a container that feels very safe, that feels very nurturing, that if you're in a moment of the show and you're like frazzled, we're not going to take it personally because we know it's a moment,
Yeah.
right? We can become as spiritual and these avatars that we know ourselves to be. But along the journey, we're still navigating this human experience. So for me,
Mm,
the most important thing I can offer as a feminine is a container that feels safe and nurturing for others.
I love that. So when you were curating this, like the event and like all like everything that you had that you were dreaming up, what was that like? What was it like pouring your heart and soul into it? Like, did it just like light your soul on fire? Was it scary? Like, what was like, what were like those feelings? Because I know like when I started my process, like first of all, like the first couple of steps I took, I thought like every bodily function was going to happen because I was so bored. But then like
Yes.
once I got into like the groove and like the whole swing of things, I was like, this is literally the most blissful experience of my entire life.
Yeah.
And I cannot believe that I was experiencing all of this fear leading up to it. Like, this is, like I just knew. So I'm curious, like, was it the same for you?
Again, I just want to start from that place of like what you said before, which is that it's the fear, and then you're on the other side of it. And you're like, oh my God, the fear just evaporated and it's become
Right.
this beautiful, blissful moment. So it makes me think of when we did our first show, right at the Radisson. It was a small venue. It felt safe. It was wonderful. We had a community of people that supported us that we had built
Yeah.
relations with over the years. So it was safe. It was wonderful. And then he got inspired to bring it to the convention center, honestly.
Yeah.
So it was that mega leap from like 40 people to like now we're talking over 100 people in all of this. And if I tell you, I went like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Like,
Quantum leap.
exactly. But we did it anyway. But we felt so inspired, I think, through every moment of that, even though we had some intense moments of fear.
Oh, yeah.
And then to have, I think, our greatest fear realized with COVID in our little nucleus,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it all served as such a great platform for us to continue to grow, to show ourselves that we had what it took to see it through,
Mhm.
because that experience in and of itself opened up so many different avenues that we hadn't explored in terms of hosting a show and
Yeah.
what happens when the world falls apart around all of that. So
Right.
that taught us a lot.
Yeah.
But what
Yeah.
do you, how do you feel?
I think the first show was so, it happened so quick, even though it was 6 years building up to when we decided, it happened literally so quick that we were like, it happened, it was over. It's like, wow. So we had no time for fear, because once we signed on the dotted line, it's all right, we have to step up and do this. We
It's like
committed to
there's
it.
no other choice here.
There's no other choice. So really there was no fear, but it was when it was done and we stepped back and like, wow, all right, now we have to do this again. So it's like one of those things, an artist writes a hit song and he's like, oh, I got to do another one.
Right.
So it's like, all right, now you have to step up. You've level set people's expectations.
Right.
But between the first and the second show, again, we went to the convention center and said, I want to do a show here. And she thought I was crazy. I'm like, let's go for it.
Let's do it.
There's fear, but then what's the alternative? Saying we never
Right.
did it.
Right.
So we
Right.
signed on the dotted line again. COVID happened. We had to do all kinds of scrambling for a year and a half. And then we did our first show there in September 2021. And we had about 100 exhibitors, which we were thrilled with. We had about 3,000 people attend. We were really happy because it persevered through all of those challenges.
Yeah.
And it was hairy.
And it was hairy.
We had quite a few challenging moments in which we were just like, oh my gosh, are we even going to make it through this? And if I tell you, the universe had our back like you would not believe it. And I think
It always does.
in retrospect, it was that first aha where it was like, wow, this is like taking this deep breath, because this is not about us.
No.
Yeah.
This is about the lives that are going to be impacted by what this community gateway of energy is meant to do. Because again, it's not just us. We're just out in front a little bit more, but make no mistake, we collaborate with everyone in that show. There's no one person that's more important than the other.
No.
Yeah.
Period.
And it gives us so much joy when we see, businesses that have been with us from the beginning growing and growing and growing. And it was a part-time job and now they're doing full-time. That brings us so much joy, or people coming up to the show and just, you can see the look in their faces and they're connecting with people. And that's what it's all about. The more that we get our message out for this community, the more it gives people options. It's not to say this is right or this is right, but it just gives them the ability to explore different options in their life and potentially meet that life-changing person. And that's what really it's all about. I mean, we have one exhibitor. She's been with us from the beginning. The first year she called up and said, can you just put me in a little table in the hallway? I'll be happy there. And now she does a show religiously every year. She does it full time. And that brings me so much joy to see that we had even a small part in helping anybody. It's just, it touches our hearts, and it really makes me happy to see we're changing people's lives. Even if a couple at a time, it doesn't matter, we're changing people's lives. And that's what really makes it worthwhile.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, right? Like that's why you started it to begin with. And I think it kind of like brings us full circle where like it's about answering that calling, wanting to impact the lives, starting small, shooting for the stars. And you mentioned it's just been 6 years, and like in the grand scheme of things, like that's nothing, And I think about too, like I've had my business now for 5 years, and like I think 5 years ago, if I were to be like 5 years, that feels like forever. But like it's such a little blip in time where like such massive things can happen. And I think that most of the time people don't even give themselves a chance to like last 6 months, let alone a year,
Yeah.
5 years, 6 years to really let the magic happen. And like, congratulations to you guys. You've built like, let me just shout that for a minute. Like they've built the largest event expo for spirituality and wellness in New Jersey, and they started 6 years ago. That's insane. Like just because you followed that voice and because you followed that calling. So like let this be just like a sign for anybody out there who's thinking about, starting their own journey in like 5 years, 6 years, or even less. Like you too could be like doing this full time, answering your calling, living out your soul's mission and your soul's purpose. And, the only thing standing in your way are those like fearful things that could happen. But like, what would be possible for you instead of like, you think about, oh shit, like what could happen? Like, what are people going to judge me? What if it doesn't work out? But like, what if it does? What if it all does work out?
But what's the worst that can happen if it doesn't? That's
right.
You've got
nothing to lose. I mean,
Yeah.
you blink of an eye. Like I said, we're both in our 50s. So we started this, I was mid 50s. I'm 50, going to be 59 in a couple of weeks. It's never too late. You can't say, well, I'm too old. No, we're going to be starting companies until we're 80s or 90s. I don't care, because what's the alternative to sit there and, enjoy, take the leap. You have nothing to lose.
If you would have said to me when I was 30, even 40 at the time, that we would be doing something like this, I'd have told you were crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
I hadn't, I was just having a conversation with someone the other day, and we were talking about, creativity. I didn't really spark and activate my own creativity until I was in my 40s. So it's never too late. You're never too young. You're never too old. Just trust that you're serving something far greater than yourself. And you can't go wrong.
No.
You can't. You just gotta go with the flow. When it looks a little lopsided, just keep going.
Yeah. Growth's not linear, right?
Yeah. No.
It's not linear.
Absolutely. No.
As long as you make that first decision and you decide to start, the rest is history. It's just a matter of making that first choice.
You're going to be supported completely.
Yeah.
You have that faith.
Yes. 50, I like to say 51% faith over fear.
I love that.
Like you just need that 1%, like that little inkling, right? Because no one's ever going to be 100%. Like that's just a lie. So before we wrap up, I want you to just kind of tell us a little bit about like when your next expo is coming up. Tell me about the store that you have or the shop that you have. I'm super curious, especially because we do have a pretty large local following. So I'd love to kind of like just learn a little bit more about what's coming up for you.
So the show is March 7th, 8th, and 9th, 2025.
Oh, wow.
At the New Jersey Convention and Exposition Center. So it's about 7 months away. So we're really excited.
It's close. It's going to happen before we know it.
Once we hit September, it'll really start to accelerate. It's just a fantastic weekend. You'll come out and meet all different types of people, businesses. Last year, we had over 60 free workshops. So there's plenty of opportunity to listen to all the different people speak, the message across, listening. Wonderful, wonderful weekend. You can check us out on our website, which is heartofonenessholisticexpo.com.
Down below.
We have a couple of our previous shows on YouTube, which you can check us out there and just see a couple minutes on what you're going to experience.
Yeah.
The boutique, we have a wellness boutique. It's called Heart of Oneness Wellness Boutique. It's in Manalapan, New Jersey.
Yeah.
The address is 710 Tennant Road. It's building 4. It's a magical place. It's one of those places where you pull in, it's in a little office complex, but once you go through the green door, it's a whole new world.
Yeah, I like to say I love watching people's reaction, because we're kind of off the grid, but we're not, because we're right off of Tennant Road and Route 9. And if you're familiar with the area, they're pretty busy roads. Because of our positioning. And I think it's perfect, because it's like you walk through those doors and you're in another dimensional reality. Like people come in here and they're like, what is happening? Right? But and again, I feel like that just serves as that beautiful message and little, message and inspiration from the universe saying, we have you in this spot because it's a gateway for people to really uncover themselves again in a space that's nurturing and supportive and loving and warm. And the space, really, we created the space out of the show. We wanted to offer a space where people can come and practice and host workshops who may not necessarily have a brick and mortar. So it really was that gateway of saying, listen, you collaborate with us at the show. We want you to know that you're welcome to be with us in the boutique, whether you want to sell your products, if you want to host some of your workshops with us, you can. Plus, I'm, certified in crystal healing many, many moons ago and crystal bowls and all that stuff. So I am everything crystal goodness. And that's my world. That's my world. So I wanted to curate a space like that. And then we get to do it together. So it's been an incredible everything.
Special. I love that so
You
much.
have to come. You have to
So,
come.
like, I'm trying to think about like when I can get there. And it's like my in-laws live right over there. So there's no reason for me not to.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
Oh my God, you have to come check it out.
So are you open every day?
Open Wednesday through Saturday.
Okay.
Wednesday 10 to 11, 1 to 7. Thursday, Friday from 11 to 6, and Saturday 11 to 5. It's just a great world to be in, and again, if anybody's thinking about starting something, start it. You have
Just
nothing
start.
to lose.
Yeah, just start. Like, what's the worst that could happen, But we won't know the worst case. You have to think about the best case.
Yeah,
You have to
Exactly.
start, right? Like,
That's
focus on
right.
what you want to create, and
Yeah.
the rest is
Absolutely.
history, man. I love it. Well, Karen, Matt, thank you so much for coming on here today and just chit-chatting with me and talking to me all about your journey and what you've created. That is absolutely so inspiring and so exciting. And I can't wait to attend the event and to come visit in the store. It's so awesome. So for all of you guys out there, go ahead and give them a follow. Take a look at all of the things that they have upcoming. Attend the event in March. It's free. Like, duh. Like all of these workshops for free. That's obviously a no-brainer. Yeah.
There's such a value there.
Such a value. And if you're not from Jersey, Edison Convention Center is like surrounded by hotels.
Yeah. There'll be people that come out and spend all weekend. They come and get a hotel. The Hilton Garden Inn is less than 2 miles away, and they stay the whole weekend and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sounds like a vibe.
Amanda, we want to say thank you
Thank you so
so
much.
much for having us on and allowing us to share a little small perspective with your community. It means so much, and you are a delight.
Oh, well, you
so
guys have
much.
been an absolute ray of sunshine. For everybody who's listening, all of their details are down below in the description box. So you can go find them on all of the links. Again, right down below. And remember, you are you, and that is your superpower. So I hope you all have the most amazing day ever. Like, share, comment, review, subscribe, do all of the things on all of the places. We really appreciate it. And talk to you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to Credentialed Coach School podcast. If you like today's show, please give us a 5-star review and tell us what resonated most with you. This helps me to continue to create content that you love and find supportive.